This is Brent Feldman, and we are back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. We are joined today by Justin Lawrie. He is the CEO and founder at Grey Duck Studios. Hi, Justin. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing really well. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Not a problem. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to jumping into some of these questions here. The first one I've got for you, I must say I've seen a lot of different LinkedIn profiles as I sort of do some research for the podcast, and I have to say yours is fascinating because you only have two entries, and one is Grey Duck Studios, and the other is being a Disney cast member.
Yeah.
How do you balance the overlap of these experiences? Because I saw they do overlap.
I still don't know to this day how I balance that. I mean, I started with Disney long before Grey Duck, and I've always been doing Disney, but I it it's called I'm not human, I guess.
Yeah. That's how it works sometimes. Well, that's cool. It's unique to see that. Do you obviously you're Grey Duck Studios, but does this have anything to do with a current or past Disney character at all? Is that how you got the name or no? Okay.
That has nothing to do with Disney. I mean, the story of the name is actually kind of funny. So I'm originally from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Minnesota, we play a game called Duck Duck Grey Duck, which, for those of you who do not know, plays pretty much exactly the same as the wrong version you guys call Duck Duck Goose. So Duck Duck Grey Duck, I was like, it's a very Minnesota thing, Duck Duck Grey Duck, and I was like, what if we called it Grey Duck? And we searched up the domain, it was available, done.
Wow.
But it had to be with an E, not an A, because if you do an A, it's a photography studio.
Oh, really? Okay. Have you ever called them?
I have not.
And the only reason why I ask is like I was curious and I contacted another Matchbox, and since we're Matchbox, I call it. I was like, hey, how's it going? And it's just always very interesting when somebody shares your name. Not exactly, but yeah.
Well,
you
I
gotta
have the
find those
advantage of there's two spellings of gray, so
yeah. Well, I must say that, as far as like Disney stuff, I have gotten, it's Disney, kind of adjacent. But, I've read the book about, the founder of Pixar, or founding Pixar. And I've also, I have a book called The Imagineering Way, which is full of, sort of inspirational quotes, anecdotes, and life advice from unbridled thinkers really on the Disney team. While you may not be an Imagineer yourself, do you have any advice that you've kind of picked up along the way that is applicable to Grey Duck Studios?
That's an excellent question. I think probably not necessarily from the Imagineering side, but don't be afraid to use your imagination. Be creative. Think outside that box, I think, is something Disney has taught me a lot. But also, um, Disney has when I first started, it was called the 4 keys. Now it's the 5 keys because they've added one. But, really taking those 4 or 5 keys now to heart and really making sure that Grey Duck, to the best it can, model those same 4, now 5 keys.
Yeah. What are the keys actually?
So the 4 keys they date back to Walt himself. So they are really a checklist of how you go about being a cast member. So the first thing is what we're doing safe. Safety is number one. It is at the top of everything we do at Disney. Second thing is courtesy. The newest key, the 5th key that they added, goes in the middle, and it's inclusion.
Cool.
Then show. So making sure that we are always, Walt believed that, especially in the parks, we are putting on a show for you. We are cast members. We are the center of the show. So making sure that when we're on stage with you guys, that we're always show ready and we're putting on the best performance we can. And then the last one's efficiency.
Cool.
Making sure we're being efficient.
That's wonderful. Wow. I know it's like one of those things that I feel like applies to life, but business really well. So yeah, those are actually those are fantastic things to apply
Walt
just
thought
about
of it
anywhere.
many years ago, and it's still used at Disney to this day.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. Well, actually, the Gray Duck Studios, I noticed you focus on virtual events, and it looks like you had been doing it, for more than a decade, well before the pandemic. So
Mhm.
I'm really curious, what was the thing that really kind of helped guide you towards virtual events, and was there anything that you had to base it on as you were developing in a time where it wasn't as necessary or critical?
So yeah, fun story on that one. So I have to start with I don't have a 4-year degree. I actually dropped out of college. It was not my thing. But at the time I was in college, I got involved with the National Society of Leadership and Success, which is an honor society that teaches leadership skills. Somehow wound up becoming president of that organization. Don't ask me how, because I still don't know to this day. But um we were doing these events because there are these events that you have to do to get like inducted into the society. It's like a thing, these steps you have to complete. And we were just struggling with keeping people engaged, and we were struggling with getting people to show up.
Ah,
So I suggested in one of our weekly meetings with the national office, I'm like, what if we tried it virtually? And they're like, this is not best practice. We don't condone this. This is not going to work. A danger, danger, Will Robinson kind of moment. It was
uh-huh.
very much taken as you're crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm going to try it. I had my advisor's backing, like she was on board with doing it as long, like let's try it. So we tried it and it worked. And we actually had higher attendance and just as much engagement, if not more engagement, when we did it. And I'm like, we're onto something. And then it was crazy because then when the pandemic did roll around, all of these campuses were actually calling us and being like, how did you do this? Because now we need a plan because we weren't affected by the pandemic. We just kept going
Yeah.
because we were all I was only doing maybe 1 or 2 in-person events to 10 to 12 virtual events already.
Yeah.
You know, it, it made no effect on us. Oh, I don't have to schedule those in-person meetings. Cool.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
already phasing them out anyway.
That's awesome. So, sometimes, taking the leap, I guess, turned into, yeah, what would seem to be really helpful and maybe even critical infrastructure when something like, yeah, the pandemic did happen. That's cool that you had kind of like all the nuts and bolts all ready to go.
Mhm.
I guess I'm curious. One of the strengths of virtual events seems, to go under leverage is the understanding of all the data that can come out of it. And, whether that's, all the stuff around attendance, interaction, but, you're able to provide dashboards for, some of that critical info. How do you think this changes the event, for the attendees or for actually the, maybe like the host themselves?
Yeah. So first things, and I love that you brought up the host because at Grey Duck we always look at things from the host first, which is
Cool.
not what a lot of people do. So many
Mhm.
people focus on attendee first, and that's not the way you should be thinking about an event.
Cool.
If the host ain't happy, it doesn't matter what the attendees experienced. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter as much.
No, that's fun. Actually, it won't be reflected back in what they're able to do or what they can do. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So the first thing we do is we everything lives in the event platform that we use, and it's an internal platform we use here at Grey Duck. And it gives us because everything is integrated into it, including Zoom. It's a
Mhm.
Zoom enterprise account. It's got full HD video. It's 1080p. It's 100 breakout rooms per Zoom meeting. It can scale with us. It because of that, we're able to do things that just you can do it with regular Zoom, but it's not easy. It's
Right.
definitely going to take you a lot more time. And by the one advantage the dashboard gives us is now I have literally given everyone a centralized hub to go to, and now they're logged in. So when they complete an exercise, when they download a resource, when they click a button, I now have it all tied back to a first name, last name email, which can sync back to the client's CRM. So now all the data is synced up into that CRM, which is where it really matters to
Yeah.
have it go back to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I will say that, like, oh boy, having it go into the CRM is so critical. And I feel like that's also the step that seems like can be tedious. But if you're not leveraging all of the the attendees and the people that you got out of that event, then you're kind of wasting your money
What's cool is
sometimes.
the platform natively integrates with 7 CRMs.
Cool.
And then we also have an app inside of Zapier. We're a native Zapier application, so we can, if you don't use one of those 7, we can Zapier it.
Oh,
So
very cool.
we are literally, like here at Great Oak, we use Salesforce. Salesforce isn't native
Hmm.
with the platform, but with Zapier, super, super easy.
That's wonderful. Well, it looks like you're kind of consulting on not only creating the event, but really also how to, take advantage of the revenue opportunities that brings. What
Yeah.
are some of those opportunities, either, pre, during, or post event that you are frequently recommending?
Yeah. Number one, stop giving away events for free. That literally is the first thing out of my mouth. If they're like, it's gonna be a free, I'm like, it's gonna be a what? So you're
Uh-huh.
gonna be charging at least $1. Cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm a big believer that you gotta pay to play.
Yeah.
You don't attend an event without having at least some skin in the game, because now the attendee is more, and it's a psychological thing. If the attendee had to pay to get in, more likely to show up.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
So, so if the word free comes out of a client's mouth, I stop them immediately. But then the other thing I like to do is I look at things from like, okay, you sold, we're just gonna use the numbers we use all the time, $97 general admission ticket. But now we're gonna offer this VIP upgrade.
Hmm.
And we're also not gonna give away recordings to those general admission tickets. We're gonna make that under the VIP lock, which is now an additional $197 on top of the 97 they already spent.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've just taken one ticket, upgraded it into a higher level ticket, and now the only way they're getting the recordings is on that higher level ticket. And because we have the dashboard, which also takes, just like how we can send information from the platform to the CRM, the
Mm-hmm.
CRM is sending information back to us as well. And we can say, hey, what do we know on Brent?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Brent is a VIP. He needs to be able to see this stuff versus Alex over here only bought a general admission ticket. He only sees this stuff and he has no clue that there's other stuff on the dashboard if he had upgraded to VIP.
Yeah.
Like the ability to just get into a single Zoom meeting, like having a VIP experience. You can have a separate Zoom meeting that your general admission don't even see,
Yeah.
which super powerful.
That is cool. Yeah. And I could see also like the ability to leverage that for, sort of not just creating two distinct, audiences there, but maybe finding out the people who are like actually, really committed, the people who really
Yeah.
want to be there and who are seeing the most
There's
value out of
so
it.
there's so many ways you can slice and dice it. That was
Yeah.
just one example. I mean, we have a client where they have what used to be 4, now 5 different programs within their community.
Yeah.
And there's a point in their virtual event where they actually break out into those 5 groups, and we use the data on them to be able to display those buttons appropriately. And now I know how many toolkit were there, how many flight school, how many coaching, how many unfair advantage. Like I know it broken out by the numbers because I'm tagging them all in their CRM, which is Active Campaign. They're all tagged, but now I can customize the dashboard to those different experiences.
That's wild. That's amazing. That's really cool. So actually, I'm curious because virtual events are for everybody. They could actually, they could meet any sort of industry need. But have you noticed that certain industry verticals perform better or have like a better natural fit either for revenue generation or anything else?
You know, what's cool about virtual events is they're kind of industry agnostic. They don't
Hmm.
really now, do I think there are some things that don't perform well? Yes, absolutely. There are, if you're selling an air conditioner or solar panels, it's not gonna necessarily work,
Yeah.
But if you're selling coaching, consulting, a course, um, you name it, a book. Um, we have a client who does their national conference um, completely through the platform, and they've completely gotten rid of their in-person version of it just
Wow.
because it's so much easier, and your overhead is lower by 75%, which is crazy.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I could imagine that, the cost versus people doing in-person events could be it's very significant, and being able to bring that down is definitely is probably a big highlight of what you're able to do. Actually, I'll flip-flop my questions because that walks right into one that's actually that's on here. But essentially, trade shows can cost a fortune.
Mhm,
You have
mhm.
the displays and flights and people in tech and all that stuff, and not to mention the space that you have to rent. But do you, yeah, I guess you kind of mentioned it, that it's 75% cheaper, that virtual event, and
Yeah.
it can yield revenue as well, I guess, not
Not
just,
just yield revenue, it yields more revenue
yeah.
than that in-person event by 53%. And we run the numbers, and the we were shocked when we saw those numbers ourselves, but we're like, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy.
That is cool. And I will say, the ultimate difference that I think about too is that, like, I constantly hear about this at trade shows. Like, people have a badge, they're getting into the event, there might be a QR code on the table,
Mhm.
but the amount of trackability is not even close. It's kind of like, as people watch, I guess there's a little more trackability with like OTT and stuff now for, like, advertisement, but it's the fact of getting like people on your website where you can track them a lot better than you could if you were just like, oh, we're going to run a commercial or something. But yeah, having the trackability must be just amazing.
Well, and you said on the website, the dashboard has a ton of tracking on it, but then we also have the tracking inside of Zoom. So what's even crazier is then, so you just ran an event, and what's the most important part of the event? The
Hmm.
offer. Wouldn't you like to know who exactly heard that offer
Yeah.
and be able to send a so glad you joined us. Here's a recap of the offer versus the ones that didn't attend, but you still want to offer it to them. Sorry we missed you. Here's our amazing offer that we're proposing today. With us, we can do that. We can run a report. We call it Zoom attendance. We can run a report not just for the entire Zoom meeting, but we can run it within a window. So if your pitch is from 1 to 2, I can look at, okay, here's everyone that was in Zoom between 1 to 2. And I can also say they had to be in Zoom for X percentage of that time. And now I can send that tag back to the CRM of everyone who attended. And guess what? You now have the ability to do it, what everyone has always wanted, to guarantee know who actually showed up, which I have not seen any other virtual event company or platform do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds really cool to be able to track that.
Mhm.
I'm curious, and I wonder, is this a the cobbler's kids have no shoes, sort of analogy, but are you able to, and as you grow and scale your own operation, are you able to run your own virtual events, or do you leverage virtual events to promote your own business?
Funny you mentioned that because we're actually doing our first one in June 8th. What is it? It's June 19th through the 21st.
Oh, cool.
It's called Virtual Event Blueprint. It's going to be 3 full days in Zoom. We practice what we preach, but we're going to kind of peel back the curtain, kind of think Wizard of Oz. We're the wizard behind the curtain. We're going to
Hmm.
teach you what we know. But it's going to be a lot of fun. 3 days in Zoom. I'll make sure you have the link if your viewers
Yeah.
want to register for that.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, because like I'll definitely include some links in the description here. And yeah, is there anything else that I guess that you have to share or plug? Definitely, if people want to check out your website, I'm sure we can put
Yeah,
that in there
definitely
as
check
well?
out greatxstudios.com. Definitely take a look. And here's the thing, and I'll say this to anyone: if you have an event and you are open to the idea of virtualizing that event, I can tell you right now, you're going to get a much bigger audience. You're going to get a much wider reach, but you're also going to get a lot more data and control of the experience versus in person, because and your costs are lower, which is never a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like it would be much better to have kind of the consulting and expertise from your team as opposed to try to wing it, do it yourself, not make the revenue you need, not have the elements that you need to be trackable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, just the other piece, we haven't really touched on it, and I think it's important to talk about is, how you frame your content matters. We teach our clients a formula that is the same formula used by Russell Brunson, Dean Graziosi, Nick Nimmons, Alex Carmozzi. They all use it. Barry Bumgarner, they all use it. We teach that exact same formula. And a lot of people don't realize, like, people look at me like I have three heads when I say, well, you got to have your offer three times
Hmm.
in three very distinct styles because you're targeting three types of buyers.
Yeah.
Not something you ever hear talked about. I didn't know about it until I learned the formula myself.
Yeah.
But I've seen the formula. I know the formula works. Um, there's a person who I look up to, Barry Bumgarner. I'm in her coaching program, and she constantly says, "Don't f with the formula.
Yeah.
It works. Don't do it." And we take that to heart every time we teach it.
I couldn't agree or endorse that more. Yeah, actually, we work with Corey Quinn. Corey Quinn has
Mhm.
like kind of his formula for his like marketing playbook, and he sticks to it, and it works. And it's like that's the thing. It's the repeatability. It's yeah, making sure that you're doing the same thing, so you don't aren't all over the place with stuff. But yeah, I agree. Believe in the formula.
Yeah. Yeah, and just, how you structure it, making sure that it's building to, like for us, day one is all about community. For a typical 3-day event, we focus on community on day one. We do a lot of breakouts. We try and make sure the audience is engaged, and then day two, we're really setting up for that offer, that pain. And so that way, when you do drop the offer, it's now we've built pain all day. There's that solution.
Cool. Oh,
So,
yeah, that's
yep.
awesome.
And then day three is all about celebrating, celebrating the commitment you made, not just to buying whatever the offer was, but it's also committing to yourself and reinforcing that your day one starts today.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, honestly, I think it will be great to have that link out there for you sharing a greater peek behind the curtain. You've already shared some amazing lessons and stuff
And some
here.
of those are going to be in the event. I'm sorry I spoiled a little bit, but
No,
it's
that's
too good
great.
not
Hey,
to.
that's the teaser that everybody needs to want to join and get some more details, because I feel like those are extraordinarily helpful. But I definitely I want to say thank you so much for for being on the podcast and for basically for sharing some of this information with us.
Absolutely. Glad to do it.
Awesome. Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I am your host, Brent Feldman. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.